have with us Dr. Herren, who is the founder of Biovision and the Millenium Institute, and also was the co-chair of the IWS TD report. So thank you very much for making time with us, and welcome to Nairobi.
Thank you.
So the main core of why we're here is because of the agroecology conference. So what has been your thoughts about the agroecology conference, and what are some of the actual steps that people from the African nation, people at large, can be able to do to actually scale?
Thank you. Very happy to be in Nairobi, back in town again. I spent 11 years in this country running ECP, so it's very nice to come back, and I come back regularly. This conference on agroecology and also reduction of the pesticide in agriculture is very, very timely. It's been just about 10 years that the UN commissioned report on agriculture, which was the International Assessment of Agricultural Knowledge, Science and Technology for Development, had been published. And the call from the 400 authors of this report, including many people from Africa, was to transform agriculture towards agroecology and actually transform the whole food system to more sustainability. So we decided to have a conference to discuss sort of a little bit, where are we with development of agroecology following this call for action already 10 years ago, which, by the way, was signed and endorsed by Kenya and 16 other African countries and about 50 others on a global scale. So this conference has actually addressed the issue of, do we have enough evidence to make agroecology the mainstay of agricultural policies in Africa? Because there's a lot of discussion out there on how are we going to nourish the continent with this growing population, develop different needs, and also in face of the challenges of the climate change, for example, in addition to all the other problems we have. So I think from what we heard and what we knew even beforehand, yes, agroecology can produce enough food for a growing population in Africa in the face of the challenges which will come from climate to changing needs, for example. So we know that. So the evidence is there. Now the question is, how do we bring the evidence to the policymakers, decision makers? And here again, we have decided to come down with a list of actions which can be taken as a matter of urgency by policymakers. And so we also expressed what we want and what we don't want in terms of policies. And I think one of the biggest element of this policy is to make sure that governments start to invest their funding and also convince the development partners to put their funding into agroecological research and development and extension. Unless we have more research, and in particular more extension of what we already know towards the farmers, include them in the whole process of developing new technologies and new science, new knowledge, things will not work. So we know we need a new emphasis, a very strong one, in promoting agroecology as the only practice which will take care of the challenges which Africa, but the same in the rest of the world, will face in the coming decades. So I think we can be quite happy with the results of this conference, and now the job of the organizers, the job of all the people who participated, will be to bring this message to the stakeholders, decision makers at many different levels, from the local to the regional, to the national, and even international attention, so that the transformation will happen without any delays. Climate change is coming. We have more and more problems with climate change, extreme weather patterns, droughts and floods. So one of the main tenets of agroecology is actually resilience, and that's what we are trying to build more and more.
So it's very interesting, because on your presentation, one of the things you insisted was you can't continue to do business as usual. So what does that statement really bring out?
So the report, the IASTD report as we call it, or Agriculture at the Crossroad, had the big banner was business as usual is not an option. And that meant that we need to transform and change the paradigm behind agriculture, from an agriculture which is based on external inputs like fossil fuel, fertilizer, pesticides, that this has no future in a world of limited natural resources. And that's why we said we need a transformation of the system. And I think that we have reached a point now that we actually can really do it if, again, we can convince our policymakers to jump the gun, as we say, and stop listening to the few vested interests which are blocking the way of the transformation. And I think this is the big thing right now, is that many development partners are still in the old paradigm. A lot of the big foundations, and I can mention AGRA, for example, here based in Kenya, which is still dealing with the old paradigm and actually blocking the transformation of what we want to see. And that includes many of the major donors, actually, who still decide outside of Africa what is good for Africa. It's time that Africa decides for itself what it wants without the interference of those vested interests which are very much present here in Africa.
Very straight and straight to the point. And you obviously could share the IWS TV report. What is the state of actually execution of the report? Where are we, or what are some of the steps that are being taken to address this?
So the report, when it came out in 2009, was basically maligned quite a bit, in particular by the countries which had a big interest in promoting or further promoting green revolution. And that's so basically the report since then didn't go very far in terms of influencing FAO, for example, the UN Agency in charge of agriculture, nor some of the major donors like the World Bank, for example, or the African Development Bank, none of which actually ever used the report to influence their own internal policies. But what was very important is that the NGO world has adopted that report as their report. And they have been really pushing for agroecology, for organic agriculture. They have been pushing some of the countries of donors also to change their view on what they need to fund. So I think the report has created a mass movement from bottom up. And 10 years later, we can see that even FAO is now talking agroecology. Some donors are coming around and talk agroecology and will fund agroecology, like the Swiss Development Corporation, for example, who really has concentrated most of their funding into agroecology. So some of them have come around. Many remain to be convinced, and I think that this conference here is also partly, or has as an objective, to convince the people out on the margins still today to come more and more into the fold and looking at agroecology as the new paradigm for sustainable agriculture and food systems.
Definitely. So as we finish up, so one of the things that we can take from this conference is that there is an urgent need for us to actually adopt and embrace agroecology for us to be able to move forward as a society. So, we want to hear from your own perspective and from your own words. Why is there an urgency for us to adopt this agroecology?
So the urgency which was mentioned at the meeting, and I like to come back to this issue, that we can't wait much longer, because the present agricultural model contributes to its demise by furthering climate change, for example. We know it's not sustainable. It's linked to more deforestation quite often. It is linked to the use of fossil energy, which all basically contributes to climate change, which affects agriculture. So we can see that we are in a negative spiral down. So right now there is this urgency to make the big changes, not the small ones. If not, I think we're going to miss the boat. We know that we're going to probably miss, well, most probably, the 1.5 degree average temperature increase. In many areas of the world, it's going to be 4, 5, or 6 degrees more, which will make agriculture very, very difficult. In Kenya, for example, it will most probably displace your coffee production, even your tea production. But what you're going to do if you can't do that here? Now, sure, Kenya is not the culprit for the main problem with climate change, but everybody now has to transform. Everybody has to contribute to the change which is needed. And we can't wait yet another decade of thinking or asking ourselves, is it really that bad? I mean, do we really need to do something, or is it going to go away? It won't go away. We need to really strongly say we will contribute to the transformation, because we want to be part of the solution of the problem in agriculture and not continue to be part of the problem. And that's why we have to reject 100% anything which comes with an agriculture which is based on the old bankrupt science and technology and philosophy of the green revolution.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
your time.
Good.
And,
I hope it will kick some butts.